recognizes first and second generation rights. The second generation rights are socio-economic rights. And socio-economic rights also include the right to protect consumers. Consumer rights, they fall within this category of second generation rights. We want to protect consumers from exploitation and abuse by unscrupulous business individuals or institutions which perpetuate unfair consumer practices. The path to economic transformation must be centered on ethical business behavior. This therefore requires an energized, coherent, and effective approach by all South Africans working together to protect consumers against what is termed unfair market practices. Hence this year's theme, creating a fair marketplace. Creating a fair marketplace. As a province, we are concerned about many goods and services that have entered the South African market over the years. Some of them are manufactured locally, while others are imported. But they are mainly counterfeit and non-compliant products. It used to be part of our lexicon to look at the quality of a product. And when you thought that the quality is inferior, and you say, we rekile ko so these counterfeit products enter our market. And as you know, some of them are quite harmful to human beings, like it happened with some skin lightening creams and so on and so on. Of course, we know about these batteries now that are being recalled. Many of them are being recalled. And they can explode in your house and damage your house and even cause harm to people. During the build-up that was done here, food items that had expired and that were not safe for human consumption were confiscated. They were confiscated around here. And consumers are bombarded with deceptive marketing strategies and flashy packaging and false advertising. And this makes it impossible for consumers to make rational purchasing decisions. As they say in Afrikaans, the Afrikaans, goedkoop is duurkoop. Goedkoop is duurkoop. What it means for those who are what is the term, DM? The follists. Is it the follists? The follists don't speak Afrikaans. So goedkoop is duurkoop means if you buy something that is very, very cheap, you must know that you actually paid for nothing. You bought nothing because it's going to break or not function and not serve the purpose you thought it was intended to serve. As a province, we advocate that any product or service purchased by consumers should satisfy their expectations, be safe to use, fulfill expectations, and those who sell these goods and services should provide full disclosure of information. And sometimes we do not read. We who are highly literate sometimes display tendencies of being illiterate. So we don't read this information on products. We are also worried by some unethical debt collection processes. Particularly the civil servants are subjected to unlawful and dubious debt collection strategies. The current payment orders balance, which stands at 26 million, has left many employees with virtually no money from their monthly salaries. And it is a sad state. We do understand that we are experiencing difficulties in terms of cost of living, the economy, but the over-debtedness is being exploited by unscrupulous people, where at the end of the month, your pay slip shows 0. And this, we ask the relevant agencies really to ensure that people do get some relief. There is some restructuring of the debt, and I know it can be done. Program Director, while there are various mechanisms in place to assist indebted consumers, these processes are sometimes not followed by debt collectors. I would like to take this opportunity to urge all stakeholders to work together with government and to correct this situation. As a province, we will ensure that barriers that inhibit fair market practices in various businesses across the province are eliminated. Our commitment is to build strong partnerships in which efficient and accountable business practices will thrive, and consumers and business owners will work together in pursuance of a common goal. We really want that relationship so that business owners are not seen as exploiters who chase profit maximization at all costs, and at all costs, even at the detriment of consumers. We wish to convey our message of support to you here, who are going to talk about these problems, who are going to work on solutions, and who are going to work on implementation plans so that we ensure that consumers are really protected. And we will also, as government, play an active role to support these processes. We know that this journey is going to be a long journey. Sometimes those who sell spaza shops and so on want really to sell at low prices, and they end up chasing wholesalers that sell concoction of products where the sugar is not really white and it's not really brown, but they sell it to consumers at low prices. And in fact, I have seen that some spaza shops actually sell teaspoons. You buy 1 teaspoon of sugar, you buy 2 teaspoons, and with coffee they do the same. But if you look at the quality, and they are generally unbranded, it's not Selati, it's not Hewlett, you don't know what it is. And so we want really to assist. We know this journey we want to traverse, it's not going to be easy, but we are committed really to ensure that we eliminate these practices. And so I don't want to take too much of your time. I know I've got a very strict taskmaster behind me. And so I want to take this opportunity to wish you well in your deliberations. And to conclude by saying that you must know you are in Sun City. There's no other venue in South Africa that matches Sun City, I tell you. No other. I was lucky. I once traveled to Atlantis in the Bahamas. And what's Sol Kessner? Sol Kessner is the person that conceived Sun City. What Sol Kessner tried to do at the Bahamas, using the advantage of the ocean, tried to create a better Sun City. And I just remarked, I was unfortunate I could not say this to him, but I said this to the chairman of Sun International South Africa, that an imitation remains an imitation. It will never be the real thing. Enjoy your stay here. Go and see other magnificent treasures of the Northwest, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. And I know indeed the DM has already indicated that they are enjoying Northwest. Northwest is rich, is that people do not know. The chairperson of Tourism Board, the people must know how rich is the Northwest in terms of the tourism, and we are going to make sure of that. Thank you very much, Premier, and I think DM, we will, as time goes on in the program, deal with the matter that Premier has raised of the debt collectors. There are people here, Premier, who are going to come up with solutions. We don't want challenges, we want solutions. Because as government, the reason why we collaborate is for this reason that we need to work together to make sure that we also save our public officials. Thank you very much, Premier, for the warm welcome. And bagaetsho ke a solofela gore Premier o tlhoka matsogo gore o la amogetse sentle. A gona dintja mo Sun City. We don't have dogs here, but we have Big Five, TM. We do have Big Five in the Northwest. Because the program is fela kanako, some of you in real life. So, after this session, let's chairperson of tourism bodies here, Premier. But you are going to pay, you must pay for that. All of them you must pay to see them, it's not for free. So thank you very much, Premier. I'm going to skip the introduction part because Premier has already introduced some of the guests. What I will do, because I'm a program director, DM, as time goes on, I will indicate who amongst us from Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Free State, Limpopo, and KwaZulu-Natal. Kita indicate who are those people because thank you very much, Premier, for dealing with two items at the same time. You are so progressive, and thank you very much for that. I will now go straight to the overview of the consumer protection in South Africa, and I will call Ms. Tesi Mabuza, the acting commissioner, to come and speak to us. Ms. Tesi, I can see, I heard you in the morning, we are too much, but now I'm going to give you only 15 minutes. Make sure that whenever you speak here, you deal with the matter in the province, so that because of the biasness I have for the women. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Embassy. Deputy Minister, Premier, my HODs, my fellow colleagues, distinguished guests, let me just observe a protocol in that sense. I tried as much because this is a subject that is very close to my heart. I live in consumer protection, and sometimes when I turn to speak from the heart, I really can speak the whole day about consumer protection. So today I just tried to write a speech. It will be the first time, pardon me, I'll read. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It is indeed an honor today. We have come so far to really look at what we had done in history. As I look into consumer protection in South Africa, a quick reminder to say the Commission was established to enforce the provision of the Consumer Protection Act. And distinguished guests, allow me to take you through down memory lane, reminisce about our achievements, trials and challenges, while highlighting some of the matters we took to the NCT and the impact thereof that we have made in the lives of South Africans. We do have a good story to tell. Out of many cases that we investigated, there is a few I would like to highlight, especially the ones that dominated the media and consumer protection space. The ones that warm our hearts as regulators. I want to remind you of those days wherein no one believed in our work, to a day wherein everybody relied on these regulators. We can agree that we need each other in this space. I remember in 2013, and I am looking at my colleagues here, you know, we woke up to a Sunday Times story that says, "What are you eating?" This was around the incorrect labeling of meat products, where there were reports that there were traces of kangaroo meat, and that meat that did not meet the requirements as it was sold off as beef. Now, while the CPA does not apply to some of these goods, but with strong working relations and an interest in consumer protection, our law refers us to other regulations. Our intervention in this space resulted in labeling requirements of meat products in South Africa, imported and produced locally. Distinguished guests, another one is, it was the year 2017 and 2018 when the country experienced listeriosis outbreak, an outbreak that claimed more than 200 lives of South Africans, young, old, and vulnerable. Devastated and scared, our team of investigators rolled their sleeves to get to the root cause of the outbreak. Working with other regulators in the space, we exercised our powers and as enshrined in the CPA to instruct the supplier, as identified, to actually recall the product. We initiated the recall. We did that, and the lives of many was saved. One of the other stories I want to share with you today is our investigations against Ford Cougar. This was after a number of Ford Cougars combusted, either being parked or while being driven. This phenomenon caused anxiety on a lot of South African drivers. Even if you were not driving the car, when it was parked next to you, you would actually want to drive your car away. Our preliminary assessment led to the recall of 3,400 vehicles. Our investigation revealed that Ford Motor Company of South Africa distributed vehicles that were not safe at the time of distribution. The Ford Motor Company of South Africa was fined 35 million. They were ordered to replace those vehicles, and then there was compensation of 50,000 to 58 affected consumers as compensation. Again, we could not do this alone. We had to rely on expertise of other regulators, like the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications, wherein the team had to confirm the homologation and calibration of certain components that they regulate. Once again, our intervention saved lives. Fast forward to 2019. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of consumer protection. We had by that time Regulation 350 that was gazetted, and to curb the price exploitation of suppliers of goods and services that were deemed critical to fight the spread of COVID-19. Regulation 350 made it a prohibited conduct for suppliers of those goods and services to increase their prices unfairly. It was a mammoth task for the Commission, as consumers throughout the country were feeling the exploitation. Traveling to different parts of the country to investigate these matters proved to be impossible. We have also learned that during COVID, that suppliers have used new means and ways to avail their goods and services to consumers. Consumers had to adjust in the shortest period of time on online transactions. Delivery of essential goods like groceries. We are now using e-hailing as part of our daily activities. On the other hand, COVID-19 meant that because consumers were restricted and could not buy from stores in their areas of residence, could not buy from stores of their choice, they had to depend on their areas of residence. This somehow limited their rights to choose suppliers. The CPA during this period focused more on formal businesses, and it was during this period that where suppliers, especially in the informal market, saw the opportunity to bypass certain requirements. This is one of the areas, especially now referring to DM and the Premier, to say that this is wherein we need to tighten our enforcement efforts, protect the most vulnerable. We are still stagnant in this regard. Our laws require that the NCC and the provincial consumer affairs offices to be able to serve suppliers. The supplier need to have registered physical addresses. We also know what happens in this sector. You will go there, get a supplier, but then the next day, the very same guy that you spoke to would have changed their names. Regulators cannot keep up with these name changes by these suppliers, purely because they want to bypass the system. With no proof of business registrations, our work becomes difficult. We have also tried and observed high level of businesses being liquidated, making it difficult for the NCC to take these matters to the tribunal. But even if we do so, we do get judgments, but then because there's nothing really to salvage, we always get hollow judgments. Consumers in deep rural areas are also subjected to substandard and unsafe goods. As Premier has alluded to, the issue of repackaging, the issue of measurements and all that, we do get suppliers that repackage goods like sugar, meal, flour, cooking oil, and so forth. Consumers are subjected to illicit goods. When these suppliers repackage cooking oil or bread, the health and safety standards are compromised. Consumers are subjected to unlabeled goods. We need other regulators and the environmental health inspectors to visit these premises more often and monitor their operations. And where they find non-compliance, we need to take decisive actions against such suppliers. On the same issue of labeling, as the CPA matures, we have strengthened our efforts to curb the proliferation of non-compliant clothing, textile, footwear, and leather goods into the South African market. We do this to help with the help of other regulators, including SARS and SAPS, especially their customs officers. As we heighten the enforcement in this sector, other suppliers try to bypass the requirements of certain laws like the Merchandise Act by defacing the labels. In turn, these suppliers are contravening the CPA. We have taken it upon ourselves, DM, to have intimate engagements with importers of these goods. We still have a long way to go, but we are making strides. The only weapon we use over these years is the Consumer Protection Act and other acts in the consumer protection space. We will continue using these weapons as the changing technologies and the ways of doing business indicate that we need to strengthen our enforcement efforts. Our laws are strict enough. It is time we become tougher in enforcing these laws. Over the years, our work was challenged a number of times at the Consumer Tribunal and other courts of the laws in the Republic. Our potential to enforce the CPA was questioned by many. The Commission remained resolute. Our mandate is to enforce the CPA. Some of our interventions and investigations are questioned by many, but we triumphant as South African consumers continue to rely on us when their transactions go wrong. Having said this, we cannot have a fair marketplace if the supplier's conduct offends the provision of the CPA. As we celebrate this day, 40 years later, we say to suppliers, you have a responsibility to create a fair marketplace by ensuring that you comply with the CPA and its provision. Lastly, I would like to really thank South Africans and all of you for trusting us, believing in us, in our capabilities for fighting your cause. Thank you for affording us the opportunity to grow with you, to be able to continue educating ourselves and one another. Indeed, we are still learning, and Premier, it is for this reason as regulators, in the consumer protection space, we come together to toe the line. And this line ought not to be crossed, and that line is consumer protection. Our theme this year is firm commitment and continuous protection of consumers. And we wish every South African and ourselves a happy Consumer Protection Day. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Tezi. I promised, or I won't stand near you because you are a woman. Naliba Fazi, we are so Premier, because we need to protect one another. DM, we must say it, and say it very loud, because hey, so thank you very much, Ma'am Tezi, for that overview. And I think before we can call another speaker, ke tlo go kopa gore bana ba rona ba bokoni bophirima ba amogele speaker se se tlang a le ready go tobetsa dio tsa lona mo, you will indicate. But I think, Premier, while they are still doing that, because the next speaker, I won't even give her time, simply because he's a politician, not a woman. So I won't even give her time, but I will give her space so that the speaker can tell us why we're here. But at the same time, Premier, I think during our build-up activities, these activities, DM has shown us that really we do have some challenges, because some of the things are not even labeled, like your tissue, which is something that our people are using it on daily basis. And they don't even have names on it, and so on and so on. So the presenters who are going to come here, like I said, they must help us to make sure that we deal with this matter. Even the prices of goods are not even disclosed sometimes, especially from our brothers, the brothers, foreign brothers. They are brothers, there's nothing that we can do. Premier, earlier on I indicated that in our homes, because of these brothers. So their goods are not even disclosed. They don't even have sales records, and we need to deal with these issues, because the sales records that are not even issued. I'm trying to buy time while I'm discussing these issues. Some businesses owners, they are even sleeping on top of those sugars, maize. I saw one in one of the rural areas, but it's normal. And like the challenge is that today, tomorrow is another story, it's business as usual. So we need to deal with these issues. Ready? Okay, to welcome the Deputy Minister. Halala Bokone Bophirima, halala. Halala mmino wa setso, halala. Re a leboga ba re ke version e nngwe ya Mmausi DM. So go ra gore Mmausi o tla tswalla. Mo Bokone Bophirima DM, ha o sa itse Setswana o tla re Premier go briefa ke re e ke tshentse ke bue ka Setswana. Mo Bokone Bophirima DM, re ke bina yana. Re bina ka setso Premier o tla nna go brief gore ke bua kae. Re itlhalosa ka mmino gore re bomang re dirang. Mmino lo no tlhalosa ole ga nne utlwele go sa utlwa ke tla go brief after this session. But I think it is important now to welcome the Deputy Minister to come and talk to us. Batho ba Bokone Bophirima, batho ba South Africa, you are so jealous le ka matsogo a lona. I'm so concerned. Because the DM will speak to us. After the DM, ke kopa gore le motlisetse Mmausi tona kgolo ke batla mo opelle mmino wa Setswana. Re tshwanetse ke gore a ke re ba ruta puo ya bone, re tshwanetse re ba rute puo ya rona. Ba e bue ga ba le mo Bokone Bophirima. Ke a leboga.
Thank you very much, my colleague, MEC Klapi, the program director. Before I even greet MEC, We must be proud of our cultures. What was happening here was beautiful. Thank you very much. It was beautiful. Let me greet Premier. Thank you very much, Premier, for being with us here and for the warm welcome that you have given us. I will follow what MEC has said, which Premier has acknowledged all the guests. But really, I would really love to greet our CEOs, also Premier, or the traditional leadership that is here. Where I come from, you don't get into any space without greeting ubukhosi, ukhuleke, ukhahlele, wenze konke. That is what I'm doing. Ngiyabingelela kakhulu ebukhosini be obukhona phakathi kwethu. Let me greet also our Commissioner, Umabuza. Thank you very much, Mama Mabuza. Let me greet you, CEO, where NCRS, Premier. These are the people that need to be known exactly. We've got our CEO of the National Regulator and Compulsory Specifications, because they play a very important role again. As we say, we are protecting the consumers, but they start from very far as to say, even the product that get into those shelves, the necessary specifications that should be followed. So the CEO is with us today, Siyabonga kakhulu, Bhuti Edward. Let me greet also the CEO of the Independent Communications Authority, ICASA, Mr. Ngwepe, who is amongst us here. NCR, the National Regulator, Financial Sector, the FSCA, they are with us here, Consumer Protection Forum as a whole. We are greeting you. We are saying we are very proud of you, and also greet all the government officials, various departments that are here, SAPS is here. I know we've got quite a diverse gathering of the departments that are here, because really what we are gathered here for, it's very important. And I always say what is nice in life is that all of us here are consumers. We all need protection as we are here. In one way or the other, all these rights that we are here for today and in everyday lives, those are the rights that we must all know. So we are the important people, all of us that are gathered here to say, what is it that touches us every day and how best can our rights be protected moving forward? Premier MEC, when we look back today, it marks exactly 61 years since the then United States President John F. Kennedy rose to the occasion and sent a special message to the US Congress in 1962 by formally addressing the issue of consumer rights. As the President of the United States, he located the issue of consumer rights at the apex of the federal state. He was the first prominent leader who has done so. The consumer movement first commemorated this day in 1983, and since then, this day has been annually observed internationally as the day where we put into the radar the issue of consumer rights and the fight against corporate robbery that is always meted against consumer and corporates. Once again, as the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, we are proud of the National Consumer Commission and its allies in the sector. And we are proud that they are hosting such the International Commemoration Day under this day under this beautiful theme that they've created this year. We know, we have observed that you have been consistent even under most difficult times, especially during the 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic. Your role during the hard lockdown, again, we have seen where you have been acting in protecting the consumers. You have remained the legendary. And also your consistency is the sign of absolute determination. Let me congratulate again the Northwest Province as a host for this year. I've seen in television for the past 2 weeks or even more, the build-up programs that the department was coming up with, raising awareness and invading the outlets that are selling fake and expired foodstuff to the unsuspecting consumers. We must keep up this good work. This is a critical part of the task of our commission that they must undertake always without fail in the interest of the vulnerable people. Thank you very much, MSC. We have seen you. We have been in those rural areas. We have been proud of you working with the Consumer Commission. This year, the World Consumer Day, as it has been said, is held under a very beautiful theme where we are saying we are creating a fair marketplace. And I want us to underline that fair marketplace because as we continue, we must always know that we are being fair. All the actors in the sector of the consumer rights must scale up the education approaches to inform both businesses and consumers about their rights and responsibilities when products are being marketed by the industries. We have a responsibility as a consumer organization to police the adherence to regulatory compliance by companies marketing and promoting product sales. Again, why I want us to underline that word fair, it's because from what even the MEC was saying when he was telling us what they encountered as they were doing the build-up towards this day, she's even saying, you go all out there, you find products that are not even labeled. You know, yes, some of them might be coming from outside the country, but also some might be even coming from our own SMMEs trying to get into the space. The fairness that I'm referring to is to say that balance needs to be struck, just to say, yes, we want new players to come in to the economy. Let me also make an example of the toilet paper that the MEC made. Yes, we want our MMEs to be producers. We want them, when we talk localization, those are the things that we are looking for. But at the same time, because we need to balance the right of everyone, yes, the SMME, that small company wants to get into the space of economy, but at the same time, the consumers who need to consume, who need to be the one who are taking these products, needs to be protected. So that is the role again of this forum, the Consumer Protection Commission, is to say, how do we balance all those things, as to say, when the new entrants get in as new companies, what is our role again? Because we need to work in the manner that we support each other. Within the same department, DTIC, we have got people who must be there for these small companies, as to say, what is expected of you when it comes to the issues of labeling? Your production is there. How are we labeling it? How are we making sure that the consumers know exactly what is it that they are buying? So that is why I'm saying there is even a broader role of the commission, as to say, how do we coordinate everyone in making sure that at the center we put the consumer, so that whatever we do, but the consumer is being protected. You as a consumer, you go and buy the toilet paper, you know exactly when it was made, what was used there. Are there any allergies that I can react to in that toilet paper? That is the function that we all need to come together and say the consumer is at the center. And that is why I'm saying congratulations to the commission, because exactly that is what they're doing, and they are still broadening their scope as to say how best can they protect us as consumers. A similar effort must be made towards consumer being educated about what to look for before concluding contracts with companies. This is important for consumers, good people. As customers, to understand the right from purchasing of good items, such as buying property through bonds, vehicle financing, to small things like buying a cell phone. It's very important, like buying a dress, clothing. Our consumers must be educated at all times as to say, what is it that you need to look at before getting into such contracts? We must instill consciousness from our people to scrutinize the products before buying. The biggest problem with us consumers is that most of the time we decide to buy through emotions and excitements. We pay no attention to the fine prints and quantity and quality inspection. These things tend to catch up with us at a long run. Let me make an example. Whenever there is a sale, or let me not even go to just an ordinary sale, how many of you, when it is said, I nearly said Good Friday, Black Friday, we become excited. People go to the shops, 12 o'clock, they are in the queues. Nobody under that excitement will even look at what he or she is buying. The excitement just overwhelms us. We go, we take those TV, everything. 2 weeks down the line, you have to bring it back, you know. So that's exactly the education that we must give to our consumers, as to say, whatever situation it might be, it's very important to scrutinize and look at the goods that you are about to purchase. Let me see. I want to make a very good example. When we talk to the issues of educating, for me, I always say, even going down to the school level, that helps a lot. I'm a living example of that. One day I come home, I found in my cupboards, my boy was still doing grade 8. There were people who came to school to educate them on how to scrutinize, look at the expiry dates and so forth. When I came back from work, I found my cupboards were almost half empty. I was surprised, and my boy was, you know, he was busy that day. When I asked him, what are you doing? No, Ma, I'm looking. All these are expired. This one expired yesterday, this one. Then I begin to say, yes, when it comes to education, even the schools can play. The learners, they can listen, they can drive us as parents, you know. Sometimes we tend to forget these things, but I just want to emphasize the point of education, as to say, we must try by all means in making sure that we reach every corner of our country, even at the level of the schools, because we are trying to make sure that our consumers know about their rights and what is it that they need to look for when they scrutinize this good. Related to this excitement that I've been talking about, this excitement arising out of emotional and impulsive buy, is the drawbacks arising out of lack of due diligence. Many consumers enter into these contracts, including credit cards, with no imagination of the impact of honoring repayments. Down the line, as they default repayment, they get indebted. The interest rate of repayment becomes unbearable. In the case of car finance loan or housing bond, the bank ultimately repossesses. As a result of this, a bad credit score is attached to one's name. These are the consequences of bad financial decisions. We must educate our people that debt is not always good. I know the competition as a civil servant. Let me make an example of teachers seated at the staff room. You know, you find that in the purse, a person has got all it's not the shopping cards, what is it? These account cards for all the shops, you know. That is exactly where we need to get in and educate our consumers. It can't be. You can't be having 4, 5, 6 credit cards. What for? Have you looked at the consequences? Are you going to be able to repay all those things? That is why we find our people indebted. It's worse when you just come out of school, you get into the workplace. That is exactly where we need to be very strict. We need to close that gap, as to say, how best do we educate our consumers in making sure that they conduct themselves accordingly when it comes to taking all these contracts. And also, as we are talking of the emotions, the unnecessary competition that our people tend to have. I can't see MEC being my colleague driving a big car, a Range Rover, not even looking at my own circumstances, and I say, I cannot be beaten by her, I also want to buy a big car. That is exactly the education that we need to get in and educate our consumers, as to say there are various circumstances and situations, and you need to take a very informed decision before you get into any credit in life. It is your task as the National Consumer Commission, Consumer Protection Forum, Financial Sector, Conduct Authority, National Credit Regulator, let me say all the ombudsman and other related sector organizations to remain activist oriented in raising societal awareness. Companies have a profit motive, we all know that, and therefore they can sell and they must sell and sell products to raise more sales regardless of long-term implications to the consumers. They must also sell less quality products with higher price to gain bigger revenues. That is their role as these companies, but we need to be there. You need to be there to make sure that you police them and you protect the rights of our consumers at all times. We must never allow the sellers of products of whatever kind to go unchecked towards consumers. It is the right of educated consumers that know exactly their rights, that will expose them, and the consumer authorities act as midwives between the consumers and the corporates. And we have seen that happening, and we still expect to see more being done in that respect. I am excited that the National Consumer Tribunal is adjudicating in favor of consumer in various matters referred to it by consumers against companies. Like one example that we have just learned about, that the Premier has mentioned, of those, what is it? What is it that we use to charge our phones? What do you call it, MSC? The power banks. That is a good move. And I think we must applaud the Consumer Commission for them to withdraw and recall all those. I know there's so many other goods that are there. Commissioner will attest to you, wherever I go and I find that there are these challenges, I always call her, and I can assure you, good people, with this commissioner and the commission, they do listen. Whenever you've got challenges in your province, wherever, through your MEC, through the consumer protection bodies within the province, but you can even reach out to the consumer protection, the commissioner herself. She listens. During the COVID-19 period, sometimes I pitied her, because wherever we went, the companies, the shop owners have just increased the prices in a very ridiculous way. I could attest to that they were running around like headless chicken, but we are always saying, Commissioner, there's still much to do. There's still a lot to do, and so much is going to be referred to you. And I know, of course, that even the NCT, there are so many cases that have been referred to them, and I'm thankful that they are working towards making sure that they protect our consumers. But what I can call for is that in such cases, can we have harsher penalties which will translate to the value for money? There is so much, again, that we are giving even to the regulators and to the institutions like the NCT. Can we see more work being done? Can we see more money where these companies that are transgressing, that they pay back to our consumers? So I'm just pleading that there's still a lot that we need to do in that space. Whilst the economy has reopened after COVID-19, post-unrest and floods, but the persistent low levels of unemployment is undermining the efforts we are doing as government. We are extremely concerned about unemployment levels of youth and our women. Because of this, consumers are vulnerable. We all know that. They are vulnerable to cheap and fake products sold by unscrupulous retailers. Illegal and foreign traders are the biggest problem in this regard. And Commissioner, from what we have said, for me, I think Premier, that's one thing we need to look at. It proves that, yes, you are there, you are protecting, there are regulators, but we still have a gap where we still need to go back and say, how do we close these gaps that, Commissioner, we're talking about, so that you can have more of the biting teeth? For me, if you say you have to serve the seller the following day, a sister is there, you know, it's sort of a gap in our regulation, as to say we must try and tighten up, as to say when you come there, we are felt as government, these entities that are working there to help our consumers are there, and you have got something in your hand to look at. But I think as we go back home, Commissioner, those are the things we need to look at, as to say how best can we make sure that we tweak our regulations to give you more space to work even in a better way than what we are doing. I really had that gap, and yeah, you need to prepare, we need to have those meetings and say what is it that can be done to tighten up those gaps that are there. We need to improve our communication approach in these issues. We need to reach every corner of our country. We need to reach everyone. They must know that they are protected by law. You know, as we were walking around that exhibition center, that side, I asked the ombudsperson, there's one table, as to say, really we are doing a good work. You are saying you are even free, these are free services, but how much do people know about you? That's one area, Commissioner, that everyone was saying, we still need to work more on that one. And I know even preparing for this, it's one thing that I've said. I said, yes, we are celebrating in the Northwest. We are in this place. I know this year in Northwest, much work has been done. But before the end of the year, how many other provinces, how many other districts are we going to have reached? And I was promised that that is the program that we are going to be working in, and that does not mean that we are here and we are passing away from the Northwest. We are still going to be working with you. Our MEC, we commit ourselves to be always next to you in making sure that we stop these scrupulous people, the retailers who are taking advantage of our consumers. In this regard, really, let me wish, or firstly, let me congratulate you that we are here today. Organizers, this is the perfect thing that we have done. Let me wish our consumers, when I say our consumers, all of us that we are here, let us be willing to learn. Let us be willing to protect ourselves. Let us be willing to be whistleblowers, because if ever there is something that we see that is not correct, if you keep quiet, you are as bad as the retailer that is selling cheap stuff to our people. Be the whistleblowers. The offices are always there. Let us protect one another and make sure that as we celebrate this 2023 World Consumer Rights Day, we are part of that and will continue to do that. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, DM. And as always, you save a lot of time. You saved us 10 minutes because I would have loved you to continue because of the information that you are giving us. And I think, DM, it is important for all consumers, especially those who are in this room, to make sure that whenever they sign these contracts, they must make sure that they read their contracts accordingly. Because we seem to be signing contracts, Premier, just for the sake of, because I've got a salary, I can sign the contract. So we must also be careful. As much as we want to protect the other consumers, which I think we need also to help them. But we must also start with ourselves, as the DM has already said. So thank you very much, DM, and I think even the presenters, as and when they are going, speeches, otherwise it's solutions. Whoever is going to present here, Mama Buza, ba se edite solanganyana sentse ke tsa nako so that they can help us. Kana ba ke mabane diema bua ka bone when we started hari le ka mole ba dilang ka di yeah, those credits totally na DMS the MEC ke ba re ga ga ke ba itse and ke surely premier ha sure ka bona. So if ha ke ba itse as the MEC and the premier ha ba itse, it means ha ba itsagale. So they need to improve in their communications so that they can assist us. Commissioner, you still have a lot of work to do so that even our people can understand, because haba patele le go patela to help us. It's free. So I think as and when we are not going to have a tea time, re tla jantse re bereka so that we save time. In our program, we were supposed to have a tea break, but we are not going to have a tea break, but we are going to have tea. Ke nagana gore e ko morago a ke sure gore where is tea o filang gore o batla tee, just make sure gore ga o fiso mo thoko wa gago ga o tshela tee, so that ka bona go na le social distance also, so we can have that tea as and when we are working. You must also visit the exhibition ba ba leng teng ka male batho ba Diema na bua ka bone, they are also that side of the room, so you must also visit them so that you can see what services do they serve us. So on the next Renale, I'm not sure Mr. Edward Mamadise is ready. If he's ready, ke tlo go biletsa mo pele inene a re fang, and then after Ntate Edward Mamadise, it will be Ntate Advocate Andres Cornelius Kibatali prepare. From there, it will na Mr. Brian Mhlongo. All of you, I'm going to gabona mo program member ke le 30 minutes. But ke batla go letsela di 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. If unonale background in your presentation, save it. If unonale preamble, save it. Go straight to the issues so that we save 10 minutes in each and every presentation. So ke go lefa 20 minutes. Sa ba bua ka di preamble, background just to save time or fe fela di kgang ke a leboga.
Thank you, MEC Tlhapi, the Honorable Deputy Minister, Nomalungelo Tuina, the Premier of Northwest, Ndade Bushimabe, all the MECs present, all the councillors present here today, the Babu Roshin, Kaspedi Kebadi Fukeng, Bakhatla Bakhafela, all the CEOs present, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I think it's still in the morning. Good morning. It is also my privilege and honor to be able to stand before you today to reflect on the work that has been done by our inspectors in the build-up to this World Consumer Rights Day celebration. The theme of this year has already been alluded to, creating a fair marketplace for consumers. The theme resonates with our mandate as the National Regulator for Compulsory Specification, because our mandate is to protect consumers through the development of compulsory specification and promote fair trade. Me Tlhapi o itse ke ska ya ka background, but ke nya go thoma ka go nyane ke bue ka NRCS, because most of us, we don't know anything about NRCS. We were established in 2008 as an entity responsible for public safety, consumer protection, through the enforcement of compulsory standard and regulations. DM o boletse ka di-toilet paper. What most consumers don't know about the toilet paper is that we regulate a toilet paper in terms of our Legal Metrology Act. What happens in the market, consumers are sold toilet paper with short measures. In a toilet paper, the standard is that a toilet paper must have 500 sheets. As a consumer, you won't be able to count each sheet of a toilet paper. You rely on the suppliers and the regulator like us to ensure that what you are getting is fair value for the money that you are using to buy that particular product. We also regulate many other things that you deal with on a daily basis, but you just don't know that it is the NRCS working behind the scenes to ensure that you are protected. A simple example, a motor vehicle. Before any motor vehicle can be sold, it has to pass through the NRCS. If, for example, BMW want to produce 320i, they have to submit first a sample to the NRCS. As the NRCS will assess the vehicle, and if we are satisfied that it meets the standard, we will then issue BMW with a certificate to produce vehicles for sales. No vehicle can be on the road without the NRCS intervention. We also regulate components that are attached to the vehicle. The brake fluids, the tires that you put on your vehicle, you can rest assured that we as the NRCS, we are always looking for safety and compliance of those products. Deputy Minister, I also want to abuse this platform and ask government to give us more powers as the NRCS so that we can be able to protect consumers. The intervention that we are asking for is in terms of the sanctioning mechanisms when we find these non-compliant or substandard goods. Currently, the only sanctions that we have is to confiscate, issue a directive, return the goods to the country of origin, and destroy them. But what we have found in the market is that those sanctions are not efficient or deterrent enough. We need to be able to issue fines so that we can deter the unscrupulous suppliers of these products. We are working in collaboration with many stakeholders like the NCC in the build-up to this event, which the Commissioner has already said that we started on the 21st of Feb in Daung. We ended in Rustenburg on the 14th of March. As part of the joint inspections among all the entities, we have found several non-compliant products. We have visited premises where we found unhygienic, dirty premises where goods are being sold. We found expired goods. We found in one place where a cat was used as a pest control. And that cat is climbing on all those products that are being sold to the consumers. You can imagine the health hazard that are involved in that particular space. We have also found products that are incorrectly labeled, or some of them, they don't have labeling. So if the consumer buy the product, they don't even know who is the manufacturer, where is the manufacturer, when was the product produced, when does it expire. We also found the skincare products on the shelves of some of the companies. Those skincare products have a potential to cause skin cancer because they are hazardous to human consumption. We have also witnessed an arrest. The police who were working with us have intervened in an instance where we found a person trying to steal a transformer oil from a power station. You can imagine we are already as a country struggling with load shedding, but someone decided to go and steal a transformer oil from a power station so that we can continue with the blackouts. We were proud of the South African police to have intervened expeditiously and ensure that the culprit was apprehended and arrested. The event of today, as I've said, it has been preceded by intervention and collaboration of all the regulators in this space to ensure that we are able to lock out non-compliant or substandard products and allow in the market the products that are safe for human consumption. I would also echo the sentiments of the Deputy Minister that we as the consumers, we need to educate ourselves, because an educated consumer is the safe consumer. Without education, all this work that we are doing, it will not yield the desired results. I must also take the opportunity to acknowledge the Acting Commissioner of the NCC, the leadership that she has shown in the Consumer Protection Forum. We are much grateful that we as the regulators, we are able to work in synergies through her leadership. Because as government, we don't have enough resources. We need to maximize the resources that we have to ensure that we do more with the little that we have. Lastly, I'm indebted to the leadership of the DTIC, especially our Deputy Minister, Gina. She's always available and accessible to us, providing guidance to the work that we are doing. I thank you. Maybe I can continue as a program director now.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, CEO. I think we heard what we are experiencing outside. So we will rely much on you. We will rely much on you as a regulator to make sure that those businesses are complying, and then also with our support. Thank you very much. I'm not taking over. I'm just, for these minutes, as the program director, she's still on the interview, so that at least we continue with the program. when the DM was coming here, I don't know whether these people are ready, the program director indicated that Ma Ausi must really come. She's here. She's here coming. And then any signal if she's ready, Ma Ausi. She might be really coming. Then after that, we'll continue with the part and then she will be taking over. My name is Lufuno Chikobi. Can we get a signal or we proceed with the second presenter? Okay, they will come after the presenter. I think Mr. Cornelius, you must come and then do the presentation.
Premier, Deputy Minister, other dignitaries, welcome. Thank you for inviting me, ladies and gentlemen. I've been asked to be brief. I think asking an advocate to be brief is like asking a child to behave. It's possible, but unlikely. Now, I've been asked to just briefly speak about an overview of debt collection in South Africa, and I think it's important to just have a look at what do we have to deal with. There's about 1.9 trillion rand in debt. That is what South Africans owe, 1.9 trillion rand. Now that is a phenomenal amount of money. Of that amount, debtors in South Africa pay approximately 75% of their monthly income to service their debts. 75% of what they earn goes towards the repayment of debts. There's 26 million active credit users. So there's actually 26 million people who owe 1.9 trillion rand. But of that 26 million active credit users, 10 million of them have impaired credit records. And what does that mean? Basically that around very close to 50% of consumers have or is not in a position to pay their debts, and they get an impaired credit record. Now for the rest of the society as large, what does that practically mean? It means that if you are a young person and you go to an institution and you want to borrow money, and there's 50% on their books that are not repaying their debts, they make the conditions upon which you can get credit more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. And we see that the amount of credits being awarded is slowly declining because banks and financial institutions are becoming more and more strict over who they will give credit to. Now, as far as on a provincial level, the Western or the Gauteng province owes 43% of the debts in South Africa. After that, it's the Western Cape, 16.23%, and Natal with 13.54%. You'll see that other provinces make up 4, 5, 6% of the debt. But if you look at the demographics of South Africa and you see where are the poorest centers or the most people that earn below a certain threshold, where are they? You'll find that Natal is probably the top of the list. And KwaZulu-Natal, as I've already said, they're the third bigger credit lender in South Africa, which some stage in the future is probably going to spell a disaster. Then, why do people borrow money? And there's a misconception why we think people borrow money. If you break it down, you'll see that the biggest reason for people to borrow money is food. Top of the list. Before that, it's personal use, then transport, then school fees, electricity, water, home renovation, clothes, and everyday expenses. But most people are borrowing money to eat, which is not sustainable. Then what is the debt collection process? You have a debt in the center, a credit provider. He now is owed money, the consumer is not paying, so what does he do? He starts making telephone calls and he maybe writes a letter or two to get that debt paid. If that doesn't work, he hands it over to either a debt collector or an attorney. Now, debt collectors, we call it soft collections. There's no litigation in that collection process. It's phone calls, it's letters. Attorneys, on the other hand, that's hard collections. That's litigation. That's going to court. That's legal fees. And because there's a cost implication for the credit provider, the tendency is to first hand it to a debt collector and see if they can get payment, and if that doesn't work, then it goes to an attorney. The other one I mentioned briefly is debt counseling. That is the one thing that the consumer can do if he cannot pay his debts. He can go for debt counseling, go on a debt review. But what nobody seems to be explaining to consumers in South Africa is that once you are under debt review, you will remain under debt review until you have paid your debts. And while that is happening, you cannot get any credit. You cannot get a cell phone if you're under debt review. And it seems that this idea that there's an easy way to get away from paying your debts directly, go to debt counseling. 3/4 of those people come back and say, but what now? I need to borrow money, I need to pay school fees, I need to borrow money, I can't eat, I need a new cell phone. And they cannot get credit because they're under debt review. Now, who is the Council for Debt Collectors? We are a statutory body. We created by an Act of Parliament, and the Council's function is to exercise control over the occupation of debt collectors. It also legalized the recovery of fees that debt collectors are allowed to charge. And we are assisted in this by the Act of Parliament, by regulations, and by a code of conduct. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Council's code of conduct is so wide as to what a debt collector may do that if you think something is unfair, then it's probably unfair. And we can investigate and charge that debt collector. Now, the Council's vision, what we see for ourselves, is the fair recovery of debt. That is what we allow debt collectors to do, the fair recovery of debt. And I won't put a lot of money on it, but I'll put some money on it. And that is that every instance you've heard of debt collection where there's transgressions, where there is institutional mismanagement, where consumers are being prejudiced, if you go and investigate those, you'll find out that that's probably not being done by a registered debt collector. And I'll get to that in a second. Now, who is a debt collector? A debt collector is any person who collects for reward an amount owed to another person. So a bank is not a debt collector. When the bank phones you, he's not a debt collector. He's recovering his own money. When a furniture store phones you, or a clothing store, to get their money, it's their own money. They're not debt collectors. The moment they hand that over to somebody else to say, I'm not phoning this, I'm not collecting, you do it, then that person is a debt collector. And he must register with the Council. If he doesn't register, he's committing a criminal offence, and basically nothing that he's getting from a consumer or having a consumer sign is legal. There's about 17,000 registered debt collectors. And this is big business. The debt collecting industry recovers about 30 billion a year in South Africa, and it's pushed back into the economy. Now, 30 billion a year, even though it's a big business and it sounds a lot, if you balance that against 1.9 trillion, you'll see it'll take about, 38 years to recover that if it's done by debt collectors. Now, what is the Council's role? We exercise control. We make sure that there's compliance with our Act and our Code of Conduct. If a debt collector does not comply and a member of the public complains to us, we have to investigate that. And we have to, when we see there's a transgression, charge the debt collector. And if he's found guilty, we can either close him down and he can never be a debt collector again in South Africa, or we can impose fines. We've imposed fines of over R1 million because we have that sort of legislative powers. We protect the public from exploitation because we make sure that debt collectors can only recover what they're entitled to. Now, as far as the fees are concerned, debt collectors' fees are regulated. We call it, in legal terms, it's called capped. You get capped fees and uncapped fees. Now, what are debt collectors' fees? And I'll make this short. I'm not going to go through the different fees, but it comes down to the fact that in terms of our Act, a debt collector can recover a fee up to a certain amount. And he can recover the capital, the interest, and that fee. Now, what is that fee? To start with, there's a maximum of just over 1,000 rand. Now, what does that mean? It says 1,000 rand or the capital amount, whichever is the smallest. So if you have 100 rand debt and it's handed over to a debt collector, he can charge 100 rand in fees. That's the most he can charge. If it's 1,000,000 rand that's being handed over, he can charge 1,000 rand, because that's the most he can charge. And that fee that he charges, even on 100 rand debt, he has to make sure and show the council that that fee is for certain items, and only certain items are allowed. He must write a letter, if he's written one, prove it, and then show that that letter was necessary, and then he can get 20 rand for that letter. So it's not a question of here's 1,000 rand debt and immediately he puts down 1,000 rand as his fee. He must do individual actions in that schedule to get to 1,000 rand, and they seldom do, I promise you. Getting to 1,000 rand in writing people letters at 20 rand a letter and 20 rand a phone call, that's very seldom possible. If any fee is not in that schedule, a debt collector cannot charge it. Right, now attorneys, that's the second step, and I know that the Legal Practice Council is speaking after me, and I've had my disputes with the Legal Practice Council and the legal profession, even though I'm one of them through the years. But attorneys are not considered debt collectors in South Africa. They're excluded from the Debt Collectors Act. Now, there is a movement, or not a movement, there is a draft amendment before Parliament that will make attorneys comply under the Debt Collectors Act. That if they collect debts, they will be limited to the same rights and fees that debt collectors are allowed to charge. Now, how does an attorney recover debts? Years ago, and I've been in the legal profession for 30 years odd, they would get emolument orders. If they can't get an emolument order, they would get an attachment order. That's where they come and take your television and they sell it for 50 rand with a court order, and you still owe money and you haven't really done anything to your debts. And these days they do debt collection. Now, why do they do debt collection? As I said earlier, litigation is expensive, and companies and credit providers don't want to incur that cost when it comes to the recovery of their debts. So attorneys have started to operate as if they are debt collectors. They have a call center, they make calls from that call center, they never go to court, ever. But what do? Because they're attorneys and they're outside the Act, their fees are not capped. They can charge basically what they want. The legal profession will tell you, oh no, there is a fee structure. But for pre-litigation costs, and I don't want to get too technical, there is no fee structure. And that's why, and I've seen this often, you'll get a debt of 1,000 rand that was handed over to an attorney. The legal fees is 11,000 rand on 1,000 rand debt. Now, if that was a debt collector, the fee would have been 1,000, if they could prove it. And because attorneys have moved into this sphere, we saw a lot of bad publicity the last couple of years, especially about debt collection fees. If I take emolument attachment orders, and I can stand here all day and talk about emolument attachment orders, I once saw a lady that had a 3,400 rand gym contract that she didn't pay. An attorney firm went, because only attorneys can get emolument orders. Debt collectors are not allowed in courts. So if you're talking about an emolument order, it's a debt collector. An attorney. So that 3,500 rand gym contract with an emolument order, she ended up paying 9,500 rand, and that was the legal fees. That was not even the gym contract. So at the end, when she had paid about 18,000 something, she still owed 4,500 rand towards legal fees. Now this is for a 3,500 rand contract. And I know I've had my disputes with the attorney's profession. The problem is that what they're doing is not illegal. It's just unethical. Now, the difference, as I said, between attorneys and debt collectors is the fees. Attorneys, debt collectors cannot go into court, they can't do any court processes, but their fees are capped. Attorneys don't go into court for debt collection purposes, and their fees are uncapped. And I just want to make a note here, please, whatever I say, remember that court and court appearances and court documents are actually for professional people. There's a reason why people go to varsity and study for 5-6 years before they venture into a court in this country. It's a dangerous field if you are not trained to be there. Dangerous for your pocket, dangerous for a number of reasons. It is a workplace and a playing place for people in the legal profession and not for general members of the public. You don't have to adhere to that, and everybody's welcome to go to a court, but you do so at your peril. You know, an attorney's or advocate's saying is often an advocate is his own worst client. You can never go to court for yourself, and that is even if you've been trained to do so. So courts are not to be played with. Then debt counselling, as I said earlier, people tend to forget there's a cost to debt counselling. It's not free. There is a cost implication, and as I said earlier, there's consequences for debt counselling. As far as consumer rights are concerned, I would say the following. Consumers should complain to the council. We don't charge money, we're an NGO, we're not funded by government, but we fall under the Department of Justice. We have to investigate those complaints. We have to make sure that what a debt collector has done is legal. And on a wider scope, before a consumer signs any document, you don't have to sign anything. Before you sign any legal document, get legal advice. Because you might be told you're signing for one thing and you're actually signing something totally different that you will end up paying for the next 20, 30 years. And just before, that was my last point, but I just want to make one other comment on emolument orders. I see there is a speaker for emolument orders. Bear in mind, once an emolument order has been issued and it's lying with the employer, nobody really knows what is happening to the monthly money that has been paying into that emolument orders. We found people that have been paying for years after an emolument order was actually supposed to have been cancelled. Who will cancel it? It costs money to go to court and cancel an emolument order. No attorney is going to go and do that. No credit client or employer is going to go do that. It costs him money as well. So those orders just lie there and people keep on deducting money from people's salaries for an order that should have been cancelled years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, I think my time is up. Thank you for listening and not throwing me with things.
Thank you very much, Advocate Cornelius. Unfortunately, on this one, I won't say anything because I don't have money to pay. Even my salary cannot even go there. So I don't want to say anything about the attorneys, Advocate Cornelius, because we are an advocate. When you are correct in whatever you have said here. Na ke batlo ya khoto wa gaetso. Go patela madi a mantsi ka salary e nyane ha ba feta le salary ya ka. I hope lu tlile sentle lona ba le ratang dikhoto le ba le ratang go ya go di lawyer. Now I'm paying my lawyer each and every month, but I can't isa di issue, so it means I'm saving. So thank you very much, Advocate. We will now call on Mr. Brian Mhlongo. How then, Tate Brian? Okay, Mouse. Mouse again, how on Zoro shake a land, Rasavolo, who is a shake. Wahota after Tate Brian, eh? Came for 20 minutes, half a hubua, then immediately. No, Mouse, let's do this. Yohuna, Mr. Brian, and then Tate Lebohan Raburif. But now you must count 40 minutes. It's 2020. Hello, Raisi Vanute, Banyana Vaka, Vanute, Solanka, Mar, Esavarago Visa Hape can Nale problem. Because Nego Visa Mahapele, the reason why Kisaho, the deputy minister is still busy outside. Kebata is Chana Sesaha Hosos, we will see. So, where is Mr. Brian? HOD? Okay. If he's not here, we will now call Ms. Lebogang Raborifi, the acting senior magistrate. In the meantime, ke kopa le check gore HOD o ka Ntate Brian ga se o le mpolelle re hete.
Asinantata ke le a bona le lona. Let me see asinantata, please. Okay. I'm the acting senior magistrate here, Moses Kotane district. And one thing I have to tell you is I am very passionate about my work, especially judicial oversight as well as fair consumer practice. And the reason is like that is I'm a former attorney. Whatever the attorneys are doing now, I used to do in my time, so I know their tricks. I'm here to talk about emolument attachment orders. And the mandate that I was given, I should focus on the implementers. This is because there is some shame involved in not having money. A person is ashamed to the whole process that is working out for them and use it. If you look at the law concerning debt collection, debt review, consumer rights, I don't think there's any more that the legislature can do. They have done their best. What has to happen is a person has to come and say, here I am, I need assistance. When you come to court, you can see, and I think you can vouch for me, advocate, there's a procedure called Section 65. Once there is a judgment against you, you come to court when you haven't paid for Section 65 inquiry. That is where the magistrate has to inquire whether you can satisfy the debt you are having it. But you see people in passages signing settlements with attorneys. Now, you'll never do that in the court where I am. If that person was unable to get that money from you voluntarily, and now you are before me, so that I can check whether you can pay or not, why would you be making another offer? Now it's my opportunity. In the district where I am, if you can see the slide that my colleagues shared, Northwest has got very few. Even if in terms of percentages we are low, but in terms of the actual debts, there's a lot. Northwest has very few. I see that my chief magistrate has gone to have tea. It's because she is very passionate about training. Magistrates in Northwest are trained. You don't come as an attorney wearing your gown and come and intimidate us, especially when it comes to debt collection. This is because our people are suffering. Just imagine today is the 15th. There's a person that tomorrow, nix. And how do we allow that? And if asna chelete 16, how is that person going to come to work the whole month? Khonale absenteeism, khonale domestic violence, you don't even have money for petrol. What are you going to do? So I am not here. I have elected not to talk to the debtors. I want to talk to Batsubago HR. I want to talk to people that can come with a solution when this is happening. A person that is not going to go to that consumer, but the person that will ensure that that consumer has got money left as at the 20th of the month. The person that was paid today, that will be broke tomorrow. Now, when we are talking about an emolument attachment order, people make a mistake of calling it a garnishee order. When it's a garnishee order, the court has ordered only one payment. When it's an emolument attachment order, the court has ordered several payments. Advocate, let me enlighten you. There's a lady in Cape Town that I love very much. The one that went to court on the University of Stellenbosch versus the minister's case. After that case, the law on emolument attachment order changed drastically. There even had to be an amendment. That lady, she was owning a farm and was saying, my employees are going home with nothing. Their money is attached. How do I help them out? And it was found that these people, there are people that like debts. I'm not going to mention two departments that I know. When you come selling pots, they buy. When you come selling whatever you are selling, they will take on credit. I served my articles at the state attorney. At the state attorney, there was a point where we were running around because departments, there were some attachments. Those are the people that we are protecting. We have a responsibility. Once you take an office like ours, you have a responsibility towards members of the public, and you must take that responsibility seriously. Now, what happens is, a person just doesn't wake up in the morning and find themselves having an emolument attachment order. There is what we call a Form 38A with a capital A. This is what happened after the Stellenbosch matter. The capital A form is the one that gives you notice. Notice that a person is going to apply for an emolument attachment order. So it's not surprise, there is an emolument attachment order. And on that notice, there will be a notice that he intends to apply for emolument, to have an emolument attachment order issued. Before that step happens, we have what we call authorization of an emolument attachment order. An attorney comes to court. When they arrive, they say to me, I have a judgment against this person. The person is not paying. I have nothing to attach. This is a judgment. These are the legal costs that have been incurred. And this is the amount that I will have to charge for an emolument attachment order issued. When it comes to the department, it comes with a statement. That statement will be itemized, saying 2 rand is for the judgment, 10 rand is for the cost, 5 rand is for the collection. So in the past, before 2018, the Stellenbosch case happened before 2018. In the past, a person will come and say, judgment, let me use interest in the amount of 5.5% from date of judgment to date of final payment. When we issue an emolument attachment order, we don't use that vague language where we are relying on people to do calculation. A person comes to court having made the calculation. I will say, oh, you are being owed 25 rand. All in all, everything that will ensure that this person has satisfied the debt is 25 rand. How many 200 rands will be paid until 25 rand is paid? When it comes to the department, you know that it starts today, it ends tomorrow. So any person that is paying beyond the date of the last installment is doing that on their own. Because I don't work in departments. I don't know how you record your things. But in my mind, it should come as it starts on the 1st and it ends it starts in January and it ends in December. So why is there no such system where it automatically cuts itself off? There's no person that has to come and say, cut it off. Now, what happens that the notice, the 38 capital A notice, is served on the debtor and is also served on the department. I cannot work without having information on which I am working. When you get that 38A, as the department, I am expecting you as the magistrate to file a notice that we are opposing this thing. This person is even eating back in the Joseph school. You can see Hana anything. This person does not have money. I am looking at this person's salary advice. Every single cent is going to Mashonisa. Remember, we have a cap. A person there is no emolument attachment order that should exceed 25% of the basic salary. We are not talking about the net salary. We are talking of the basic salary. So it means each and every one of us is going home with 75% of our salary. If you are not going home with 75% of your salary, somebody that went to the department, applied to be a legal advisor or an HR person is not doing their work, because they are supposed to respond to that document and say, magistrate, don't issue this emolument. This person is already over-indebted. I will not be having that person's salary advice in front of me. Bring the salary advice, file it in court. You don't have to be wearing a gown or doing what. There is one gentleman that I respect very much in Limpopo. He will come, he's a legal advisor. He doesn't need to go to the state attorney. He will come to court and say, I'm here on a watching brief, because if this thing is going to go to the state attorney, by the time the state attorney reacts, there will be a mess. He will come, file all the documents, file that person's salary advice. And one of the questions that Mr. Lezoro said I must deal with is jurisdiction. An emolument attachment order must be issued in the district where the person is residing or where the person is employed. In my case, when a person is a state employee, I will not use residence. I will use where the person is employed. When an emolument attachment order is served in Mafike, it's a problem because they don't know whether this person is employed or not. It must be served at Mukwas. There's a court manager that has to take that notice to Mafike so that there is no confusion. Where is this person employed? I have already stated that what I'm expecting with effect from today is that either the HR or the legal advisor is going to come to court, file a notice, say, magistrate, this person is over-indebted. This person is already having this many emolument attachment orders. And you know what we do there? At the inquiry, I have to look as to whether the order that I'm making is just and equitable. An order that is just and equitable is not only looking at that one that we are talking about, it's looking at the person's overall debt. So if you bring that to my attention, at the next appearance, what happens is every single debtor, every single creditor of that person has to come to court Now we negotiate. You are no longer getting 200. This person, 25% is ending at 200. Now all of you are getting 10 rand, 10 rand, 10 rand. And the other thing that we do is we will look as to whether there was reckless lending. How is a person now exceeding 25%? It means all of you are encouraging this person to have debts all over the place. What else am I? You must understand one thing, maintenance. Maintenance take precedent over any other debt. The minute there is a maintenance order and it is attached, if you are owing for over 10 days after the date on which you are supposed to pay, the mother of the child can go to court and we issue an emolument attachment order. We don't just issue it, we subpoena the HR, we subpoena legal advice, we subpoena information saying, where is this person? How is this person's finances? Where are they standing? And some of you HR or legal advisor, you don't come to court. And now there is that friction that I have issued a subpoena. Now in my court, if you don't come, I'm going to send somebody to arrest you. You have a car. You have a car that is paid for by the department. I have issued a subpoena against you. Why are you not coming? And there is not just one legal advisor in the department. There are a few. Why are you not coming? We would, maybe, I'm just speculating, we would be having very few strikes if we took care of the employees that we are in charge of. How do you identify an authentic order? When I got this question, I was surprised. What is difficult in identifying an order? Fortunately, something happened last week, and I realized that now there are fake orders all over this place. What you do is you look at the case number. You are already served with 2 documents. You have already been served with Form 38A. You have already been served with Form 38. Going back to that document, you can see that we are talking about the same person here. And which court is this? In Northwest, we are having 6 subclusters. They can't be for the district of Sunnyside. There has to be a district within the Northwest. You simply call the clerk of the court. You simply call the clerk of the court. Are you having this case in your records? If the clerk of the court says, I am having it, who is the attorney? The other thing that you must know, when I tried to put it, I was tempted to put it on my slide, but I said, now I'm inviting magistrates use a blue stamp. Magistrates do not use any other color of a stamp. It's a special stamp that has been made for us. If you see an emolument attachment order not having a blue stamp and having the number, I am number 1 in Mohwas. When they demote me, I'm 18. When they demote me, I'll go to whatever number I was number 4. Then I became number 1 because of my gender. I got to number 1. But if you are having a stamp, it doesn't even have those numbers. The numbers are made in a special way that I don't know, but the stamp must be in blue. And who must serve the order? If the order has not been served by the sheriff, ignore it. They will come to court and say, we want a warrant against the department. Rest assured, a magistrate, when they have to issue a warrant, they will look on whether it was served on the department. And proof of service is what? The sheriff's return of service. If it's not a sheriff's return of service, how do I issue a warrant against the the department. Don't be running around an attorney arriving in the morning, embalment attachment order, it has to be activated. Ask him, are you a sheriff? You are not a sheriff. I can even lay charges against you. Service by any other person except sheriff is a criminal offense. And you know the reason why it's served by the sheriff. The sheriff has a responsibility to explain what it says, what that order says. Now you get, remember I said to you, you get a notice of intention to issue an embalment attachment order. A hearing is held. Now the embalment attachment order is served on the department. What do? When you realize that, okay, the legal advisor with the initial notice did not go to court, you still have opportunity number 2. You write a notice to the attorney and say, I cannot implement this. I cannot implement this. This man or woman will be left with nothing after I implement this. These are the person's credits. It's not even implementable. Or the amounts are erroneous. To be honest with you, when you are in the HR department, I wouldn't take that chance of saying to an attorney the amounts are erroneous, because that order, the amounts were determined with a magistrate. The magistrate did the in duplum interest, how much are the costs and whatever. Unless that magistrate is irresponsible, then chief will take care of that magistrate. But what is expected of us is that we are not just appending our signature. You go to court with your calculator, you tell a person, go outside, recalculate and come back. And once you have given the attorney that notice that we are not complying here, you just sit and relax. There's nothing wrong. When you get a telephone call from that attorney, you say, respond to that notice. And the response to the notice is, it's either they agree with you, they come to court and rectify that, or they don't agree with you, they come to court and compel you. And on the court file, there'll be what? The notice that you gave to that attorney that you will not comply. They are not coming for a writ. They are coming there for the magistrate to look at what you are saying and what is appearing on that.
Because it's attachments, you are clapping hands. I'm going to give 2 minutes to close.
I still have a lot to say. I'm a magistrate. I'm used to talking the whole day. I'll wait for Q&A session. Anything that I haven't touched, ask me on the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Rifi, with a lot of information. And I gave you a lot of time simply because I wanted you to elaborate on black, red stems, black stems, white stems. The unfortunate part is that when you were talking about those colors of stems, and those who are affected like me, they were actually outside. When we were just closing, when baba di stamp tse di black and white, and they are going to receive them because ha ba itse gore stamp sentse se nne le coloring yang. So gora gore ke bona ba tsentseng ba go tshwara ka di bilateral ba tloko go wena ba go botsa gore which color of the stamp they must receive ka di order. So thank you very much for that information, and I think re ithutile go le gontsi Ntate Brian Mhlongo is not with us today, and I think we have come to the end of the presentations. But because we are in the Northwest Province, I must indicate that amongst us, we've got people from Gauteng. Agri event has a Northwest, it's a national event. We've got people from Mpumalanga, we've got people from Free State, we've got people from Limpopo, we've got people from KZN, bao ba tswang ko di officing tsa di consumer affairs. They are with us. The unfortunate part is that ga ba nkwalla magama, and then maybe ba lemogile gore ke a go palla ke go a buisa mangwe wa bona, because hey, ha o tshwanetse o buisa mangwe ke ro sa spele maina a batho sentle. Mausi o teng? Ha Mausi a le ready before we can go to the questions and discussions, so that the presenters le bone ba ipakanye. Mausi a ka tsena a re fa two of her songs. Mausi.
We are here. Yay! Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, ba, ba. Ala, ala. Lena kinyetsi. Lena kinyetsi. Kare lena kinyetsi mawe. Kare lena kinyetsi. Ha! Repala mataba ukue ure. Ewo! Papapala mataba ukue ure. Arelena kinyetsi. Arelena kinyetsi. Arelena kinyetsi. Arelena kinyetsi. Mosari pala mataba ukue ure. Ewo! Mosari pala mataba ure. Arelena kinyetsi. Arelena kinyetsi. Arelena kinyetsi. Arelena kinyetsi. Ewo! Are palama. Palama. Are palama. Palama obare uri. Are baban sandirin
rona re batla nama.
Ke la tsamela kgakala mausi ne ba sentse ba jaifa ke fela ke itse re batla dikuku le mabele re batla dikuku ke a leboga wa itse re tshwanela ke go rata setso sa rona o kgona go bona fela ga bana ba setso Mamthezi ba bina gore borre ba itumela yang go bontsha gore setso se monate kgosi re tshwanela ke go se tlhompha mo Setswaneng Mamthezi batho ba ileng gore ba tlhokomela borre go feta ke bomme ga gona vice versa. Borra ba re tlhokomele ya ka re ba tlhokomela. They can attest to that. O re o nkganetsa ka nna emela emisa letsogo. Wa bona ba yo. So thank you very much. After the questions and the discussions, which I think Haratlo spend a lot of time on it because most of the presentations they were so informative, I think, or maybe Tlanna program director, but they were so informative. But I think one or two questions or discussions or comments can also assist you and your team, Commissioner, to can at least fix wherever we want to fix, and maybe it our consumers. Now, what I'm going to do, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And DM, we are now on questions and comments. Questions and discussions. Nagira questions and comments. So that a little fella who raise, you must also add some sort of value into the discussions. I will start from that side. If there are any questions or comments, comment. Then kebekitlakamo, ebekitlakamo. How about la kubua? Kitlokobona or raise it your hand, then I will give you a chance to can speak. Then if our presenters must respond, I will give them a chance. If there's no need to respond but to note also, I will give them a chance to note. So can we start there? Kantlela hona sepe kaita kamo ke mama o montle ole wa moriri wa Setswana wa di short hair ke mama o montle fa ka di braiding ka le phondo wa tsibo mme ba bantle. 3 from this side. Any comment, question from this side? None. Kafeta. Oh, I'm sorry. Kidedi Fale. Then any comment from that side?
MEC, my name is Califan